where from Pennsylvania, where they, what is that they see there? And,
The coal?
huh?
He was mining coal in Pennsylvania?
Well, there's coal around it, but the town he come from is where they see that eclipse, or what the hell is it they have every year. Oh, you know what I mean. Everybody celebrates it. See the shadow, you know what
Oh,
I mean?
yeah.
Yeah, Puxatani.
Oh, the Groundhog Day, yeah.
That's where he was come from. Nice guy. Quiet, never drank. First class mechanic. He was the foreman of the Cat Bay down there, and he quit.
At the Berkeley?
Yeah, he was a guy. He knew he was good enough that he could get a job anywhere, you know, and he didn't take the bullshit down there. He was there for 3-4 years. I don't know, they must have did something to him, but I knew they couldn't push him very much. He went up to Alaska for the whole tractor company. Retired up there.
What were some of your other partners?
Oh, Jesus, I don't know. I had orangutans and winos, good guys and crazy guys, Mexicans, Finlanders. I had all of them. I got along with everybody pretty well. Well, I didn't have it bad. I had it good. I had a lot of good partners. And there ain't that many bad ones, you know. Those guys they're real one that's hard to work with. You don't have to work with them, see. Mm-hmm. I had one, this is go way back in the 30s when I was running motor. Mickey McGarry, do you never know the McGarry, Chow McGarry?
Oh, Chow McGarry. Went to school with my dad.
Well, yeah. He was the young one, his brothers, Mickey and Bob, that Mickey. There was never anyone like him. He drank moonshine down the mine, and he was nuts on drinking it, you know, and he'd roar like a lion. You couldn't trust him. You didn't know what he would do, Mickey, you know. He finally wore everything out, and they wouldn't let him mine him. The booze was driving him crazy. He'd bring whiskey to work and take a drink and roar like a lion. Mickey McGarry. North Eye, they called him. Oh, he was dangerous. When he was drinking, he was dangerous. Never knew what he'd do. He'd kick in the shins going down, you know. I should refuse to work with him after. He was on a bad deal at that time, drinking, you know. And they were about half scared of him. He was pretty husky all the time, you know. And I walked off. We were running motor, and I had them 10 cars.
Running motor?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was on the motor, and I was swamping. And he had a wreck, so he went off, cars off the track on their side. And I had to pick them up, and you got to come back and uncouple them, and it's close work. You can get your arm cut off, anything. You know, on this day he was wild, see. And I let him cool down, and I was flagging him back, you know, my life. He come back fast, and them cars flying all over. I don't know how I didn't get hit, see. And he had me in against the timber. I can't go anywhere. And that's the last straw with Mickey. I was the only one I think that would work with him, you know, when he's drinking like that. And I walked off and went out the station. Joe Church in Walkerville, he said, "Where you going?" I said, "I'm going up. I ain't going to work with them. He's pretty near kill me." He said, "You don't go up. You work here. I'll go in and we'll get that train." I said, "Okay." And Joe went in and went to work. Shortly, they took him off of that. And he wound up the blackball again. Booze.
Yeah.
You know, and he was a tough guy. I think he was nobody's saint. He was tough. pretty good size too.
Yeah.
And he was tending bar. I hadn't seen him for a few years. He's out of the mines. And I went in there, he was behind the bar in 4 North Main, tending bar. Sportsman, they called it, I think. And before that, what's the guy that owned 4 North Main had it then, you know. I walked in there and Mick, hello, he said, gee, he was a different guy, I can talk. He said to me, what do you want to drink? I said, I don't. He said, you can have anything in the house.
That's good.
Different guy altogether.
Oh, yeah.
See? And you know, it wasn't long after that he got sick, cancer of the throat, and died.
Huh.
Oh, he was a champion, that guy. After he quit the mines, when he was there shortly after with me, he got the center, the walkable pool hall. He was running that bar. The worst thing Mickey could ever got a hold of was a booze joint. But he had one. And he was married to an Indian woman. He deported her one time.
He deported her?
To Canada. She was a Canadian Indian. He deported her. She had a hell of a time getting back here. She had kids. Oh, if you could only know people that could tell you about him, he was a champion.
Where was the Walkerville Pool Hall at? Where
Right
was
straight where the street runs in. It just closed, that bar that there. They just closed it.
Oh, okay.
That was the pool hall.
Well,
Mickey was running that, you know. He'd had it a little while, not too long. I don't remember, a year or 6 months or how long he'd had it. But he had it. And one morning about 10 o'clock, he's drinking too. One morning about 10 o'clock, here comes the salesman. It's cold weather. The salesman comes in, opens the door to come in, take an order. And Mickey got a fire in the middle of the floor. A bonfire. He's getting warm. It's colder than hell. We're below 0. That's what he's doing. He's drinking. He's drunk. Goofy, see? He got cold. He built a fire. What if that salesman come in and it'd burn half a walkable down, you know? There wasn't. They got him out of there too long after that. The best thing that ever happened.
Well, Banger, you know, what was it like? What was a shift like as a miner? I mean, you'd walk to work.
Huh?
Tell me what a typical shift as a miner was.
It depends on what you're doing. If you were a miner working, breaking rock, you go into your working place, and the first thing you do is wet down. You know, stay where it's safe and wet it all down so that you don't eat the dust, see?
What would you wet it down with?
Water hose. You got water.
You'd have a hose, huh?
Yeah.
Okay.
You get it all wet down. Then you take a bar, see, and you got a loose ground, you blast it down here. You take a bar, you got a scaling bar, long bar, and you start barring it down. You bar all the loose stuff down. Make it just as safe as you can make it, see. If you have to put in a stall, put in a stall. And you clean it up, you clean your floors with a shovel. You got it all barred down, see. Well, as soon as you get it all barred down, you're going to timber. That's if you're in a timber stove, see. If you're using timber, well, then you stand your timber, see. And as soon as you get your timber stand, you start drilling, make room for more, see. If it's an open stove where you're using rock bolts instead of timber, and you rock bolt everything that's loose, see.
Okay. So you called it making room for more timbers?
Yeah. You make another blast, see, you gotta break rock, that's what you're there for. But if you don't have, I ever worked a lot of places, later years, they didn't have timber, see. They used rock bolts. Where years ago, it was all timber.
Well, you mean, could you lift one of those timbers? Could you lift a timber by yourself?
Yeah, I lifted that stuff. Heavy timber.
So how would you do it? You'd put the two posts up first?
You take a post, and you got a tenet, you see, where you stand them in a tenet, you know that. Stand it in a tenet, and you lace it, what you call. You take a lag and put it across this way, see, and spike them on. You're holding it in place then, see. You get them on, then you do the same with the other ones, see. Then you can put lag in